Masarap pa kaya pakinggan sariling pangalan, no? I'll tell you a story. A bit funny, pero the title is, English na lang kasi medyo nakakabagabag sa Tagalog. The Man with a Scrotal Mass. Kailangan Tagalog. Some years ago, bigla nagising si Jonas. Talagang ang anim na itlog mo. Dalawa lang nandito. Some years ago, a young woman brought in her elderly father to my clinic. Dito na rin sa Bulihan, my first time to be assigned. This is my third time. He had a scrotal mass. He was in his 70s. So given his age, it was important to rule out cancer, di ba? Kailangan ko pong hawakan. Pero ang face ko, hindi ako natatawa. Siyempre serious ko. Ay, kailangan ko pong hawakan. This time, instead of staring at me, ang pinandilatan niya yung anak niya. Don't you dare let her touch me. Grabe itong madre ito. Balibasa, walang nakikita. Hindi marami lang nakita niyan sa med school. I always say, again, this is an aside, no? Sometimes we can be so callous. Like when you go to your OB rotation, pag mag-IE exam, pelvic exam, sasabihin ng ibang even students, Mrs., ibukan na niya yan, marami na ako nakita niyan. In my mind, as a student, nasagot ko lagi, pero yung akin, hindi mo pa nakikita. Bakit mo ko sasabihin bumuha ka sa akin dahil marami kang nakita? Eh, yung akin, hindi ko naman pinapakita. Diba? So is that an excuse for me to be comfortable with you doing a pelvic exam just because you've done so many? But me, I'm not undergone a pelvic exam. Diba? Think about it. Don't make that as an excuse. Mrs., marami na akong nakita niya. Kung rin naman sinabi kita, ay, marami na akong nakita niya. Hindi naman totoo. No? So, but I waited patiently and seriously. And the doctor managed to convince him. So, afterwards, I wrote referrals for some tests, including a testicular ultrasound, and asked him to come back with the results. And a week later, si tatay nung pumasok the first time, parang akala mo, talagang ang bigat-bigat ng problema. At the following week, halos tumatakbo papasok sa clinic ko. Melissa, narinig kita. Alam mo, yun din sabi nung pare nung pinito ko doon.
Magaling ka pala.
Bumalik yung... pare, bumalik yung... Pasyente. Ang bilis-bilis. Kasi nakapilit yung pare. Naka-record. Sabi niya, Doktora, mabuti ka pa nagpapaalam. Doon sa isang doktor, pag higa ako, dinakma ako. He was seriously distressed. At talagang pasalamat siya. Nung ako yung tumingin, every step of the way, I was explaining and asking his permission. Please, my dear future doctors, respect. It makes a difference. Makes a difference. The T, I'm now on the last one, second to last. T stands for trust. Again, sacred scriptures attest that Jesus could not heal those who did not put faith in Him. We tend to believe that everyone who consults a doctor wants to get well. Believe it or not everybody who goes to a doctor wants to get well. Pag tinumo yung mga kaklase ko kasing tanda ko na. Yung iba pumunta doon kasi pinilit ng kamag-anak. Yung iba pumunta doon kasi gusto nilang patunayan na wala silang sakit. Gusto nila makipag-argue minsan sa'yo. Hindi. Sabi ng iba, may ganito na. So, believe it or not, there are some patients who go to a doctor, they don't want to get well. But I guess the majority do. Now, as a follower of Jesus, it is important for me to, first of all, strengthen the desire of someone to be healed or evoke that desire from them. Secondly, I must convince them to trust me and what I say and do. A patient's lack of desire to be healed and lack of trust in the doctor renders intelligence and competence useless. kahit pang multi-awarded physician ka, kung walang tiwala sa iyo yung pasyente mo, hindi mo siya mapapagaling. Kasi hindi ka naman niya susundin. Huh? On the other hand, as one who presumably understands a bit more about the patient's illness, not the doctor, I also choose to trust in my patient's capacity to help and heal themselves. So, they trust me, I also trust them. Hindi yung sinasabi ko, gawin mo to, pero sa isip ko, hindi niya to gagawin. Siyempre, naniniwala ko gagawin niya. Now, a second point on trust. One of the first subjects in the first semester in med school is human anatomy. Yan, you're studying for an exam. I was 18 years old when I came face-to-face with a male cadaver. 5 days a week for several hours each day, I had a date with that man. Group date naman. Safe. Group date kasi, di ba? Magkakasama yung mag-dissect mag-isa. Di ba? Mastery of the structure of the human body, after all, is foundational to someday waging war against disease and restoring people to health. But there is another foundational truth that I nearly missed in that eerie dissection hall. The truth that one who becomes a doctor must learn and remember that death is inevitable in this life. Death is not an enemy, my dear young doctors to be. Death is reality. And actually, it's the body of the dead person that makes it possible for you to become who you're aspiring to be. Why you became doctors. Pero hindi natin yung pinag-uusapan. Hindi natin yung naiisip. Memorize tayo na memorize. Origin, insertion, function, physiology, chemical reactions, pathways. Hindi na natin naiisip. Actually, we will all end up that way. Our patients will end up that way. Death is not an enemy. It's reality. There is only one life giver. God alone determines if life must go on or must end and move to the next. It would be good for me, and perhaps for you, to acknowledge death's place in this profession, and to respect that moment when it comes to our patients. I usually stay as long as I can. It's a very profound experience to stay with a patient of mine who is dying. As a consecrated person in the health profession, I entrust to God the healing of those He has entrusted to me. My best efforts are nothing compared to the touch of God, and therefore I ask my patient also to place their trust and hope in God. Ask them to pray. Nay, magdasal ka rin, napagalingin ka. And I pray with them that God may heed their prayer for health and healing. And down to the last letter, the final component of my spirituality, H, stands for humility. Humility for me implies a truthful assessment of who I am, what I know, what I don't know, what I can do, what I can't do, and to state this honestly to my patients, PRN, as needed. Dapat nilang malaman kung ano hindi ko kayang gawin para sa kanila. At kung hindi ko alam, ba't ko naman itatago yung... Actually, being honest with them makes my life and practice easier. Walang false expectations. It's a dangerous thing when you create false expectations with your patients. Be humble enough to admit what you know, what you don't know, what you can do, what you can't do. Humility is a joyful acceptance of what I can and have achieved, as well as a serene acceptance of my limits, my vulnerabilities, and where I have failed. Ewan ko kung may mga klase ko 100% success. ako, meron ako mga failures. Even the most admirable people make mistakes. What are mistakes? Mistakes are just mistakes. Some can be terrifying. Nung medical clerk din ako, yan, 4th year, no? Ang toxic sa ICU. Full house, 14 beds. 14 beds pa ba? Q1, Q2, bawat pasyente, monitoring. Dalawa ba kami noon? Grabe. Walang tulugan. Ngayon at around 3 a.m. in the morning, I had to inject meds per bed. Antok na ako. Nag-inject ako sa bed 1. Pagdating ko sa bed 2, hinahanap ko yung meds ni bed 2, nawawala. Na-inject ko kay bed 1. Atropine sulfate. Yung antok ko, nawala. Mahilig si Cupid survivor ng boom! Gising na gising. And I realized, my God, OMG. Injured ko kay bed 1, sa bed 2. Atropine sulfate. Takbo ko sa gaming na gaming. Takbo ko sa nurse's station. Sir! Yung crush ko pa naman na nurse yun. Sa confessions mo anak. Sir! Nasaan po ROT? Ang resident ko. Bakit? Pinamali po ko nito. Tawag siya. Tawag ng ROT. Di syempre. Gusto niya sana ako sermonan, pero kailangan harapin mo na niya yung pasyente, di ba? Tapos pagkatapos niyang tingnan yung pasyente, syempre pinagalitan ako, nasabon ako, tapos hindi naman binalawan, no? Siyempre talaga. Ang sakit, pero you know what? Parang hindi na yun ang nasa isip ko. Sabi ko, wag sana mamatay. Yung pasyente, syempre magta-tachycardia, di ba? Cardiac patient. OMG talaga, di ba? Oh my God. So, sabi niya, sige, tapusin mo yung monitoring mo. Tinapos mo, may classmates din ng obvious, of course. Confessions of my life. Monitor, gising na ako. Tapos I sat at bedside of that patient. Every time, no, tapos next month, balik ako doon. Talagang, hindi ko iniwan. Ewan ko, nakita ko Rosario ako. Jesus, siya mamatay dahil sa akin, di ba? Parang dala ko yung buboy. So, some mistakes can be heart-wrenching. Some can be funny. Though, still regrettable. Marami akong kwentong mga nakakatawa. Kanina we were sharing. Ayoko na lang, baka naka-record eh. Nakasabihin mo ka, klase ko, binisto ko sila. Anyway, some of our mistakes are funny, but still regrettable. But, my dear young people and young doctors, we can always grow and progress because of our mistakes and through our mistakes. They don't need to take away our happiness or sense of fulfillment or worth. Move on lang lagi. And then, a final point on humility. We need it for empathy. A powerful image for me of empathy is the incarnation. God becoming human. Empathy asks us to set aside ourselves and enter into the world of another and discover how she or he sees and feels his or her condition. Pero alam mo, this morning, nagbago yung aking definition. Ang empathy pala, hindi lang yung I set aside myself and enter another's world. Actually, I sort of set aside myself, but more accurately, I bring myself into the world of another and allow myself to be touched and transformed by that other person's world. So, hindi ko iwan yung sarili ko. Dala ko pala siya. Pero habang dala-dala ko yung sarili ko, hinahayaan kong maapektuhan ako in a healthy way doon sa nangyayari, doon sa pasyente. You know, empathy is not easy. And we cannot really empathize if we are only full of ourselves, particularly a false sense of self. Meron kang certain expectations about yourself. Hindi naman talaga ikaw yun. Hindi naman yun ang gusto mo. Yun ang dala mo. when we understand our patients, they stick it out with us and vice versa. Ang sarap-sarap kaya magkaroon ng pasyente na pasyente mo siya mula nung teenager, baby pa yung anak niya, ngayon teenager, ikaw pa rin ang doktor nila. Ang sarap kaya ng pakiramdam na yun. They trust you. And they stick it out with you no matter how cumbersome the treatment we may have to advise and they have to subject themselves to. Kasi, pakiramdam nila, naiintindihan ako nito. Of course, there are patients that are quite difficult to relate with. Totoo naman yun. Iisahan ka. Maraming dahilan para hindi gawin yung pinapayo mo. For such persons, I also call on the virtue of humility. I tell my patients, Ate, Kuya, hindi siguro ko yung doktor na makapagpapagaling sa iyo. Drama. Totoo naman eh. Ayaw niya ako sundin eh, paano siya gagaling, di ba? So honestly, I tell, Nay, Tay, hindi siguro ako yung doktor na makakapagpagaling sa iyo kasi hindi nyo naman ginagawa yung pinapayo ko na baka masyadong mahirap sa inyo. I-refer ko na po kayo sa iba para gumaling na kayo. My pride is far less important than the patient's well-being. Remember that. Interestingly, pag sinabi ko to, it often has the effect of making them cooperative and compliant. Bumabait sila. Hindi, Dok, gagawin ko na. Huwag nyo lang po kayo refer. O, hindi pa tinawanan nila. Nag-respond na naman sila to treatment. So there, I have shared with you my stories. Somehow, what, or actually who drives my medical practice, how I do it, why I do it. And all this makes for a meaningful and fulfilling life. Now, you also have your stories. You also have your stories. Significant, unforgettable. Think of a handful of stories that sort of stand out from the rest. Even now, as first-year medical students. Maybe some of these stories took place in a lecture hall just like this one. Others while you're walking in the wards or during a call for code. Still others might have taken place while you were lining up at mess hall. May mess hall pa ba? Or ano ba canteen yun dito dati? MSU ba sa atin? Wala na silang canteen nila. Kawawa na ba yun? Or stories even as you're lining up or eating in the canteen or looking for a space in the parking lot. What do these stories say about who you are, what you are fighting for, and what you want to do with the rest of your life? What do you want to do with your life? Really? Ba't ka nandito? You will know when you're quiet and calm. Medical school life can be chaotic. We rush from one thing to another. But my dear young people, take time to be quiet and calm. Don't inject atropine sulfate to your life. And you know what? In those quiet and calm moments, your stories will arrive unbidden. My hope is that each of you here be consciously driven by your spirituality. Jedi Master Yoda tells Luke Skywalker, "For my ally is the Force, and a powerful ally it is. Its energy surrounds us and binds us." And may I add to Master Yoda, it is what will make you whole. It is what will make the pieces of your life fall into place. And when you let that force in, you'll be able to say, to answer that question, who are you? You'll be able to say what you were born and raised for, and what you really want to finish. And you will be happy and at peace with it. Thank you very much for listening. I got permission to go into the convent. I wanted to serve in the missions. Sabi ng tatay ko, ano naman magagawa ng high school graduate sa mission? Sabi niya, anak, kaya pa kitang paaralin. Mag-college ka muna. At tapos kung gusto mo talagang mag-math, hindi kita pipigilan. But of course, as I said, yung namang aking pagiging doktor was really sideline nga. Sabi ni Jesus, pag-doktor na ako. So actually, to be very honest, maybe it's an unusual story. Pero, ano ba yun? My eyes were always, and my heart was always focused on that. Even through med school. Tukso sa akin ng mga ano tawag natin, ka-team. Pag sa IM tayo, meron tayo. Service. Service. Tawag sa akin, sister. When I was wearing an intern's uniform, sister. It was an open thing. Kahit sa initiation sa sorority, first year med school, yun ang pangharas sa akin. Sister, mabait ka ba? Everybody knew, hindi ako mabait. Kaya ako ng madre, gusto kong bumait. Totoo yun. Pagpasok ko, puro pala kami pasaway. I felt at home, di ba? So yun, it wasn't a hard decision in that sense. Maybe choosing was a bit more difficult. There are so many. But I'll just tell you one thing. How did I decide on the Canossian sisters? It was storm signal number 1, one morning, and I was already hopping, parang window shopping sa congregation bago papasok. For the first time, during one such activity, my father said, "Anak, alam mo ba yung pupuntahan mong konbento?" "Hindi, hanapin ko, Dad." "Hatid kita." Sabay kaming naghanap sa isang umagang mabagyo. And actually, that convent is a bit hard to look for. Nasa San Juan siya. Masalimutan, San Juan, Manila, sa city, Manila. It was significant for me, ba? Tagal-tagal ko nang congregation hopping all the way to Antipolo, to Bulacan. Ngayon, sasamahan ako ng tatay ko, nandito lang sa Maynila, di ba? And you know what, as I got down from the car, and mga bagyo-bagyo, ang haba ng driveway ng kumbento. Pwede siya maging scene sa horror film. Pero you know what, strangely, inside, I felt as if I was going home. There was this inner sense of peace. Parang strange. It's my first time to be in that place, pero I felt as if I was walking home. And sa totoo lang, pagdating nyo dun sa kumbento na sa chapel, napaka-drag dun chapel. What's so inspiring about this chapel? But yun nga, it's not dictated by external circumstances. So pay attention to your inner world, to the interior movements of your heart, because they will have a lot to say about the truth about who you are, who you're called to be.
You know if you're called, you will know. Hindi kasi parang pagkaasawa ninyo. Tinanong ko yung friends ko na madami naging girlfriends as biglang nag-asawa to a particular girl. Paano mo nalaman na siya na? Sabi niya, parang sapatos pala yung work. Pag pinasok mo, fit na fit. So ganun din sa vocation. I guess that's what Sister Yel is talking about. All of us are called to a vocation. Whether university, we're all called to be a child of God. Whether Muslim or, di ba? We're all children of God. Kaya lang may secondary, which is, ano ba ako, magiging single or married? Obviously, for Sister Yel, single. But mostly married. But for the rest, yung third, pwedeng single ka, pero hindi ka religious, pero meron kang specific na ifa-follow mo pa, which is probably many like us also. Lay people who decide to be single celibates. So, that is part of it. That's a vocation, but God will let you know if it's for you. But whatever it is, if you're praying, you have a connection, you would know that this is it. Kaya nga si Sister Yel, parang alam niya na ito na yun, I'm going home. So you would know, you just have to connect with God. We have many other friends who became priests. I also interviewed one friend, Father Sia, his batch. No, Joseph Sia. He went to the US for fellowship in genetics. And then in his first year, kasi gusto niya na maging pare nung pang high school siya. But it's only when he went to the United States, did his fellowship, he really felt, eto na, parang talagang tinatawag ako. So he entered at the seminary, became a diocesan priest. So whatever it is, you would know. It's like getting married.
Clearer if you have a connect, di ba? Parang you're attuned and you kinda are ready to listen to what he has to say.
Take on a life like mine, hindi ka magkaka-crush, hindi ka ma-in-love, hindi ka mag-boyfriend. Go through all those things. It's a lot of fun.
Parang mahirap yun Kaya alam mo kung bakit hindi ako nagmati.
Kausapin mo ako mamaya.
Lalo kang malilito. Okay. Do you have any other questions? Ako may question. Para meron ulit magkaroon ng libreng windbreaker.
Sige.
Okay. Ano ba yung LRTH? Oh, si Juno. Okay. Go. Very good.
Diyan na lang jacket niya.
Okay. Claim your windbreaker. Siguro XS ka. Thank you. Okay. So at this point, I would like to thank Sister Yel Adre. Alright. Thank you. And of course, Dr. Marcelino. I know it's been a